Last night, I had a big party with some of my best friends. We played video games, we sang karaoke, and we danced to some awesome music. But now I have a strange problem. I have a lot of new things in my flat that I didn't have before, and I think that some of these things are not my things, but they are my friends' things. And now I have this black jacket. It is very comfortable, but I don't have a jacket like this. I think one of my friends has a black jacket. Whose jacket is this? I know. My friend Brian has a black jacket, so it must be Brian's jacket. And now I have this scarf. It's a very pretty scarf, but it's not mine. I think one of my friends has a scarf that is just like this. Whose scarf is this? I know. My friend Fiona has this scarf. It's Fiona's scarf. I know for sure that this is one of my things. It's part of a horse costume that I wore for Halloween last year. And now I have some boxing gloves. I don't do boxing. Whose gloves are these? I know. My friend Marcos does boxing. So these must be Marcos's boxing gloves. You might remember that today's lesson is a writing lesson. So we're going to talk about punctuation. And we're going to talk about punctuation that we use to talk about other people's things. You might remember that I talked about a beautiful scarf that my friend Fiona has. When we talk about the scarf that Fiona has, it's easier to say Fiona's scarf. Remember that I talked about a black jacket that my friend Brian has? When we say and write about this jacket, it's much easier to say Brian's jacket. When we write about these objects, we must write the person's name with a capital letter, of course, then apostrophe S, then the object that we are talking about. This is an apostrophe, and you might have seen it before in writing, but now you know what it's called. You might remember that I talked about the boxing gloves that my friend Marcos left at my house. Now you know how to talk about the objects that another person has, so you know we would say Marcos's boxing gloves. When we write about the objects that they have, and of course we have to use an apostrophe, there is no S. Why? Because their name already has an S. So we say Marcos's boxing gloves and we say Thomas's hat, but when we write this, we don't want double S in their names, so it's S plus apostrophe and then the object. S plus apostrophe and then the object for all situations like this where the person's name ends in S. All right, let's get off the apostrophe highway for a moment and take a detour. We're going to talk about two words that sound exactly the same, but they have different meanings. These words are whose and whose. It's very important to know the difference in meaning between these two words. The first word is used in questions like, whose scarf is this? We use this question to ask about the objects of another person. But this whose, which has an apostrophe S, is used in questions that we ask to identify people. For example, who's your best friend? Now that you've learned all about apostrophes, you're ready to do exercise 15. In exercise 15, you have to read the sentences below and add the apostrophe in the right place. There's one thing you should know before you start this exercise. In some of the words, there is already an apostrophe. You see, these apostrophes are here because they are different apostrophes from the ones we talked about in this lesson. These apostrophes are used for contractions. Here is the contraction it's, but we know that this is the short version of the words it is. To represent the contraction, we put an apostrophe between it and s. So don't worry too much about these two. All right, it's time to go hunting for apostrophes. Good luck!